Okay, so I was like, what should I talk about? And I've been noticing not only myself, but a lot of other people, particularly, therapy clients dealing with a lot of anxiety and some restlessness for a lot of reasons. One could be that just they, struggle with anxiety, period. But another could be that with what's going on in the world, people that normally don't experience a lot of anxiety or restlessness that feel kind of encumbered with it, you know. So that's why I chose to talk about it. I'm gonna, of course, talk about, modern day life with anxiety and stuff, as well as the Buddhist philosophy, and then how to different ways that we can hold anxiety and restlessness and remorse. They're a little different, and talk a little bit about that. So I've maybe used this quote a lot. Sorry if you've heard it before from me, but Jerry Seinfeld, he says, according to most studies, people's number one fear is public speaking. Number two is death. Death is number two.
Yeah.
Public speaking is number one. That means to the average person, if you go to a funeral, you're better off in the casket than doing the eulogy. Right? And it's true. So this is one of the anxiety producing things that could bring situational things that could bring anxiety if we're having to do public speaking. But it's quite a difficult mental phenomena to deal with because it doesn't just feel mental, it feels physical. Anxiety and restlessness is a very viscerally uncomfortable bodily experience, right? So the Buddha, but it's a lot of it relates to the mind. Some of our anxiety. So where does anxiety comes from? First of all, anxiety is the extreme, and restlessness is mild. Right? It's like mild anxiety. But both of them have the energy, the sensations of jumping around, moving around, like I gotta. So it's excess energy, restlessness and anxiety. Whereas sloth and torpor and, fatigue and is lack of energy, lack of motivation. This is like, gotta jump, gotta do, And so a lot of times when we're feeling restless, we're feeling like, what do I need to be doing? I need to be doing something. So that can motivate that. And anxiety can be so painful that sometimes we kind of lock down if it's really intense. Even though we feel like we need to do a bunch of stuff, it could get so intense that we can't do anything because we can't think clearly, right? This is considered a mental hindrance in Buddhism, one of the 5 mental hindrances, along with desire for sense pleasures, aversion, which is can go hand in hand with anxiety and restlessness, because oftentimes when we feel anxious or restless, we want to get rid of it. So there's an aversion to these sensations. And then the other, sloth and torpor is another hindrance, as well as skeptical doubt. Here's the Buddha. Quote, those who conquer their minds are greater than those who defeat 1,000 people 1,000 times in battle. Kind of hard to do when we're experiencing anxiety and restlessness, right? I speak about anxiety and restlessness from a personal standpoint because that's been my hindrance to deal with in this lifetime. I don't know how many lifetimes, if there have been others, I don't know. But definitely this lifetime, whenever I feel compromised, overly tired, challenged in some way, I feel immediately some form of this jumping around anxiety. When I was young, I remember as young as 6 or 7 years old, waking up in the morning, feeling at ease, and then within a minute, all the butterflies would come. just feeling all this anxiety and fear that's usually related to anxiety. So that's pretty young to have anxiety. Anyone else here feel like they had anxiety at a very young age? Yeah, show of hands. No? I guess Bobby and I were the only ones, huh? But yeah, so where does it come from? Does it mean we're born with anxiety, that we come into this lifetime with, this shaking and jumping, or does it mean that we developed it? I think it can come from situational, if we had trauma growing up, right? If we have a highly anxious parent, anybody here had a highly anxious parent? We learn it, we pick it up from our highly anxious parent, because here we are, little dependent babies, depending on this person to make me feel okay in the world. Oh my gosh, they're so anxious they can barely, deal with life. Now I'm dependent on them. So I think, it could be somehow energetically that we pick it up at birth. Now they're talking about, there's research about generational trauma, that we can inherit trauma from our ancestors, God knows. Then that anxiety could be coming through in our DNA from the trauma. It could be that we're calm most of the time, we just have situational anxiety. Like everything's fine, and then somebody or something happens, and then we find ourselves anxious, right? But this hindrance in Buddhism is called uddhacca kukhacha. Can you say that 3 times really fast? Uddhacca kukhacha. It kind of sounds like a rash, doesn't it? Anyhow, so it means literally to shake, which is kind of what I was talking about. And we have a tendency when we have anxiety, restlessness, to get overly excited, overly revved up, right? The big problem with anxiety and restlessness is when we're in this state, we're in fight, flight, or freeze mode. You know what I mean? We've activated that part of the reactive part of our brain, and our prefrontal cortex, which is the peaceful, calm, present part of our brain, is shut off to us. So we don't tend to make very wise decisions when we're in that very anxious or restless place. Restlessness in particular can motivate a lot of unskillful choices, a lot of unskillful behavior. I know people that have addictive tendencies started their addictive behavior because they couldn't stand, they felt so restless, they wanted to go out, they wanted to do something, they needed to go to the bar to get a drink, or to use their drug because that helped calm them down. Yeah, it helped calm the restlessness down, just to getting out there and doing something. I had a niece that stayed with me because she was in so much trouble that her parents put her on house arrest, and they said, and they told me, and I said, give her to me for a year, I'll straighten her out. That was a big thing to do, but the poor child, she had gotten so much trouble through doing a bunch of illegal things, got caught doing a bunch of illegal things, and you name it, as a teenager, she was doing it, and none of the things her parents wanted her to be doing. And then when she came to stay with me, I realized what it was, because I had specific rules. She couldn't go out at these times or this times. We ate together, we cooked together. She would just be pacing back and forth. I had an upstairs apartment where she and my daughter stayed. She'd just be, and I said, what's wrong with you? She's like, I'm going crazy. I've got to get out of here. And I said, really? She said, yeah, I can't stand it. I want to feel like I got to go somewhere. And so I helped her deal with anxiety. I was like, running out to go do something is not going to help you here, because it's gotten you where you are today, this extreme restlessness that she was dealing with. So it behooves us to learn how to deal with these energies. Unfortunately, our way of life, the American way or Western way, is not conducive to feeling at calm and at peace and relaxed and at ease. Yeah, it's an epidemic. Anxiety is an epidemic. 1 out of 5 people have an anxiety disorder in the United States. And I have a feeling that it's probably higher than that. That's those who've been diagnosed, right? So we're a very highly anxious generation. And I think our hectic modern lifestyle, go, 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 having so many options, so many things, having so many responsibilities, and so much information coming at us. I don't think the brain is designed to take in all that information and to be going at that speed. Who was it that I heard a writer? So we're going at the speed of light instead of the speed of life. We're moving at the speed of light instead of the speed of life. Yeah. Can't think of his name, but I love that quote because it's kind of true. Yeah. I came by my anxiety, honestly, my family was highly anxious, highly, highly anxious. All my family members are highly anxious. And, I stay pretty calm most of the time now because my meditation practices really help me. So how do you work with anxiety? First of all, you've got to know if it's situational or if this is just systemic anxiety coming up because of trauma, or, if it's constant state of anxiety, then it's probably based because of trauma that you've had, or perhaps the trauma could have easily just been your anxious parent that passed their anxiety on to you. So then you got to learn all the skills to learn how to calm yourself. And, therapy can be helpful too, to process if you've had traumatic experiences. But I think the hardest thing to do is to be able to stop and say, oh, anxiety is present. Or, oh, restlessness is present. Yeah, because usually we're so aversive, we're so reactive, and it's so unpleasant that we, just like a horse jumping out of the gates, the mind, when it's anxious. So what comes first, the anxiety or the racing mind? Right? Well, I found that the anxiety often comes biochemically or neurochemically first, right? Sometimes if I'm worrying about something, then I can cause anxiety. But oftentimes the anxiety comes biochemically. I don't know why, I didn't get enough sleep or something happened or got all this stuff on my plate. And then all of a sudden the anxious mind jumps on that, right? It's anxiety. And so it starts spinning all kinds of stuff, right? What does the mind do when it's anxious? It chews and it chews and it chews and it grabs some anxiety producing thought stream or worry or fear or something that happened in the past that we weren't happy about, and it starts chewing on it and going around and around and around and around, and it creates anxiety, restlessness, and or remorse. So if we're worrying, if the anxious mind is worrying, then that's going to produce anxiety, because that's a future thought, future worry. If the anxious mind is lamenting the past, then we're going to experience remorse. It's still the anxious mind looking for something negative to chew on, right? That's what the anxious mind does. So the first thing that we want to be able to do is recognize anxiety or remorse, restlessness, worry, fearing, and be able to say, oh, fearing mind, worrying mind, catastrophizing mind, right? And keep saying, hello, catastrophizing mind, hello, worrying mind, hello, fearing mind. We're going to do something else right now. Find something positive to do. If you can't say, sometimes when you just say, oh, hi, fearing mind, hi, worrying mind, sometimes it'll just shut up and stop, right? If you recognize it, see it, sometimes it'll stop. But if it doesn't, if it's really going for it, and you want to try to distract yourself if you can, find something else to get involved with. Maybe it's time to go do grocery shopping, or work project, or calling someone you care about, and co-regulating with somebody can be very helpful. Another thing that can be really helpful is to just, like we did in the meditation, bring awareness to the anxiety or restlessness, right? Bring compassion to it. We have to bring compassion because it's so painful. It can be very, very, very painful. And I think I've told you the story before. I was on this retreat. I had 24 days or something on this. I was doing 7 weeks, I think, maybe 6.5 weeks retreat, whatever I could get away with. And almost every single night, my anxiety was through the roof, 9 or 10 out of 10. And I sat in the meditation hall every evening, and I felt like my whole body was shaking. It was really intense. But then every time I opened my eyes, there was no shaking going on. It just felt like it. I think I had like 1 or 2 evenings where it didn't happen. Mornings were fine, afternoons were fine. It was in the evening. And it didn't matter. My sleep didn't matter. What I ate didn't matter. I was looking at everything. Is it eggs? Did I eat eggs this morning? Like, what is it? Anyhow, I couldn't find any common denominator that was causing the anxiety. I didn't have anxious thoughts. I wasn't worrying about the retreat. Yeah. So there weren't anxious thoughts. It was just happening, right? And I was trying everything. I was trying tranquilizing the body, tranquilizing the mind. I was trying body scanning, relaxing each part of the body, I was trying compassion practice. I was trying concentration practice. Can I really focus? Because concentration practice brings tranquility, and tranquility calms the anxiousness down. So I was trying tranquility practices, bringing very calm, soothing breath in and out. I was trying everything. It helped me be able to tolerate the anxiety, restlessness. I was doing loving kindness practice, you name it. I was pulling every trick out of my toolbox, and none of it was helping, right? Because I was subtly trying to get rid of it. What is that, subtly trying to get rid of it? Which hindrance is that? Aversion, right? So I was adding aversion to the anxiety, which was making the anxiety worse. Yeah. And so it took me, I don't know, like 24 days before I saw this. And one night it was so painful, and I started to cry, and I was like, wow, this is so hard. And sitting there sobbing in my meditation, I said, okay, anxiety, you've got me. You have me. I'm all yours. Do whatever you want to with me. I'm not going to try to get rid of you. I'm not going to try to do anything. I'm just going to let you be here. Sobbed for a few, I don't know, 5-10 minutes while I felt all the anxiety, and then it calmed down and it went away. And I didn't have it again. Except for when someone was breathing too hard or being annoying during the retreat. But I don't have little moments of anxiety here and there, but that all for hours and hours of anxiety went away. And the one thing that was missing was my 100% acceptance of it. Because that 100% acceptance says, I'm going to accept you every time you're here, no matter how long you stay, even if it's for the rest of the retreat. I'm with you, baby. Here we are, right? It's a radical thing to do, but it's really important to accept and relax and allow the anxiety to be here. from a adaptive point of view, it's hardwired in us, evolutionary, to be a trigger to let us know that we need to either approach, avoid, or run away. Yeah, so it is an adaptive thing. But chronically, it can be very painful, but it can be relaxed, it can be alleviated. The problem is we often only notice when we're anxious or restless. We don't notice that all the times we're peaceful. There are a lot of times we're peaceful. Like right after we eat a nice meal, or when we first wake up in the morning, or, watching a sunset, or going for a walk out in nature. There are moments when we're not anxious or we're not restless. To really take it in every time we're not anxious, we're not restless. Really take that in. Allow that to inform our nervous system, that we don't feel anxious all the time, even if it's just 1 minute a day. Yeah. Because what happens is when we have chronic, what appears to be or feels like chronic anxiety, we start to feel hopeless. It's like, oh God, I did Ronya's breathing exercises, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and still. But there are a lot of moments that you don't feel anxious or restless. When you're restless, this is often associated with boredom. So what do we do then? Do we turn on the next social media thing? Do we look at the next news feed? Do we get on there to see if anybody's texted us? Right? Or turn on the TV to watch the next Netflix? I would say that's fine if you want to do that stuff, but first, stop, take a moment, become one with the restlessness or the boredom. Really take a few minutes to mindfully explore boredom, restlessness in the body, heart, and mind. Oftentimes it'll reduce. And oftentimes when you can bring mindfulness to it, instead of going to do some compulsive, addictive behavior, you'll be like, oh, I think I want to write a poem right now, or, do something creative. Yeah, or I'm actually missing my sister. I think I'm going to call my sister. You know what I mean? The wholesome intentions will come out of mindful awareness of restlessness. Remorse, we just keep pulling our attention back to the present moment, right? Both of these, anxiety in the future, remorse, keep coming back to the present moment. At this moment, I'm safe. At this moment, I'm taken care of. At this moment, the economy has not collapsed. At this moment, I still have, a place to live. At this moment, I'm safe. I haven't been put in an internment camp for Islamic Palestinians, or whatever your fear is. That could be, easily one of mine right now. But it's a little whatever. At this moment, that's not happening. In the future, worst case scenario, catastrophizing, it can get really ugly and scary. So 6 things that are conducive in the Samyutta Nikaya to abandonment of restlessness and remorse. Knowledge of the Buddhist teachings. So if you're feeling restless or remorse, read some Buddhist teachings. That can help gladden the mind. You can practicing the moral principles of the 5 precepts, associating with mature people who possess dignity, restraint, and calm. So being around a calm person. The last thing you need to be around is another anxious person. Noble friendship, and suitable conversation. So when you're real anxious, if it's about what's going on in the world, I found that talking about what's going on in the world with someone else who's anxious about what's going on in the world usually doesn't help. Yeah. But if I'm talking to someone who's fairly calm and who's giving me permission, can I just tell you how anxious I've been about this? You know, that can be very helpful. Um, yeah, it's really why karmically speaking, we can get stuck in was I born into this lifetime of having to deal with this anxiety? Um, a lot of us, the anxious mind will say, "Oh, if I could figure this out, then it will stop." I got news for you. It doesn't work that way, right? Um, Figuring out why we're anxious is not going to stop it. The only thing that's going to stop it is attention, loving kindness, bringing awareness to it, not feeding into it when it starts doing its irrational chewing. We have to be like, yeah, no, we're not going to do that right now. Find something else some other impulses to feed positive ones. You might, sometimes knowing if it's pain that's causing it, or sometimes there's situational things uh, that are causing the anxiety. Then be like, well, the situation's not resolved yet, or I can't resolve it right now. But what I can do is bring compassion to myself. Yeah. Exercise is great. It really calms anxiety down. Yeah. It's a huge, and being out in nature. And then looking at your beliefs. Like, what are your beliefs that are feeding the anxiety? Do you have a belief that I need to be perfect at everything I do? Or I should never be anxious? I should be calm all the time? That's an anxiety producing belief. Yeah. Another belief is I'm just an anxious person. I used to say that a lot when I was younger, and I had to quit saying that. Because why? I would just I'm ordering up tomorrow's anxiety by having that belief. Yes, anxiety arises, it passes away, it changes. Sometimes it stays longer than I'd like it to, but can I be with it? Can I be with this? Can I give it the space it needs to express itself? Can I let go of the fear that's perhaps feeding this? Can I take a few deep breaths and know that I'm going to be okay? And come back to the present moment over and over again. Breathing in, tranquilizing the body, breathing out, tranquilizing the mind, having a cup of tea, taking really good care of myself. Anything that self-soothes, putting some lotion on, or listening to beach sounds, or sitting out in the sun, anything that, you got to keep telling yourself, I care about you. You have to tell the anxiety, I care about you. I'm here to take care of you. Because that anxiety started because it didn't feel like someone was there taking care of us. Does that make sense? Setting boundaries, more silence, less stimulation, and spending time with really good quality friends and peaceful environments. Yeah. And meditate. That's a pretty big order. And it takes time. It takes time, and it takes practice. But eventually things will get better. Thank you for listening.